All right, well, I have begun recording, so this is a real thing now, and this is where we begin. I was meant to start like half an hour ago, but suffice it to say, I got stuck in traffic, literally, and took me a while to get started. But this is meant to be. Wait, what's going on? What is going on? I'm getting a phone call. Shoot. What a bad time to get a phone call. I'll have to call this one back, unfortunately. All right. So, I am going to stream a book that I got for my most recent birthday called How to Influence People by John Maxwell. And wow, that's fuzzy. All right, well, it won't be as fuzzy when I go to read it. Let's actually look at it. So this is How to Influence People by John Maxwell. So I think this is on my list of books that I wanted to read, which made me very happy when I got it. But the problem is I kind of struggle to go and read like physical books. I struggle to read most of the books that I listen to are on audiobooks. So they're in my ear while I'm in the car and I just listen to them. Which means that when I get a physical book like this nice hardcover, I kind of have to look at that and say, I'm either going to go buy that again or I'm never going to read it. So part of me starting this live stream is me trying to say, I want to be able to read physical books. I want to start a habit of that. So if I start publicly streaming and I create a schedule to publicly stream, I set up a condition where I feel like I have to succeed. I set up a condition where I feel like I have to do the reading or like it gets noticed. So this is my attempt at starting a proper habit of reading physical books as opposed to only listening to audiobooks, which I don't think there's anything wrong with audiobooks, but I don't know, I just kind of want to expand my horizons, so this is my attempt at that. So I'm going to begin. To those who have been people of influence in our lives, and especially to Eric Dornan, whose life, experiences, and attitude have contributed more significantly than anything else to Jim and Nancy's ability to positively influence people. So this is copyright 2013 by Maxwell Motivation Incorporated, California. And there's a lot of details here that I probably don't need to go into. So this is a fairly recent book. Funny story, I actually thought that John C. Maxwell was from the turn of the century. I didn't know he was kind of a more recent thinker, and I actually haven't read a lot of his stuff, I don't think. I think I might have read one of his books. I think it's the 21 Laws of Leadership or something like that. All right. I'm just going to start with the introduction. I think I've started this book a couple of times, just trying to see if I can get into it, but I'm going to start with the introduction, kind of start at the beginning, and we'll go from there. When you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you dream about being a famous actor or singer? How about President of the United States? We all have dreams and ambitions. Undoubtedly, you've accomplished some of yours. But no matter how successful you are now, you still have goals that are waiting to be fulfilled. And our desires to help you realize the dreams to help you realize your potential. Let's start by doing a little experiment. Take a look at the following list of people. See if you can figure out what they all have in common. John Grisham, George Gallup, Robert E. Lee, Noel McCong Suh, James Dobson, Brian Williams, Madonna, Alex Rodriguez, Jerry and Patty Beaumont, Rich Davos, Mother Teresa, Beth Myers, Pablo Picasso, Adolf Hitler, Tiger Woods, Anthony Benacorsi, Alanis Morissette, Glenn Leatherwood, Bill Clinton, John Wesley, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Have you figured it out? Some of the people are famous, and you probably recognize their names, but you have undoubtedly never heard of the others. The answer is that every one of them is a person of influence. We created this list at random, selecting well-known people as well as ones from our lives. You could just as easily do the same thing. We did it to make a point. Everyone is an influencer of other people. It doesn't matter who you are or what your occupation is. A politician, such as the President of the United States, has tremendous influence on hundreds of millions of people, not only in his own country, but around the globe. And entertainers often influence an entire generation of people in one or more cultures. A teacher such as Glenn Leatherwood, who instructed John and hundreds of other boys in Sunday school, touches the lives of his students and also indirectly influences all the people those boys grow up to influence. But you don't have to be a high-profile occupation to be a person of influence. In fact, your life in many ways connects with other people. You are an influencer. Everything you do at home, at church, in your job, or in the ball field has an impact on the lives of other people. If your desire is to be successful or to make a positive impact on your world, you need to become a person of influence. Without influence, there is no success. For example, if you're a salesperson wanting to sell more of your product, you need to be able to influence your customers. If you're a manager, your success depends on your ability to influence your employees. If you're a pastor, your ability to reach people and grow your church depends on your influence within your congregation. If you want to raise a strong, healthy family, you have to be able to influence your children positively. No matter what your goals are, you can achieve them faster and can be more effective, and the contribution you make can be longer lasting if you learn how to become a person of influence. An amusing story about the impact of influence comes from the administration of President Calvin Coolidge. An overnight guest at the White House was having breakfast with Coolidge one morning, and he wanted to make a good impression on the president. He noticed that Coolidge, having been served his coffee, took the coffee cup, poured some of its contents into a deep saucer, and leisurely added a bit of sugar and cream. Not wanting to breach any rules of etiquette, the visitor followed the commander-in-chief's lead, and he poured some of his coffee into his saucer and added sugar and cream. Then he waited for the president's next move. He was horrified to see him place the saucer on the floor for the cat. No one reported what the visitor did next. Your influence is not equal with all people. You may not have thought much about it, but you probably know instinctively which people you have great influence with and which ones you don't. For example, think of 4 or 5 people you work with. When you present an idea to them or make a suggestion, do they all respond the same way? Of course not. One person may think all your ideas are inspired. Another may view everything you say with skepticism. Yet that same skeptical person may love every single idea presented by your boss or one of your colleagues. That just shows your influence with her may not be as strong as that of someone else. Once you start paying closer attention to people's responses to yourself and others, you'll see that people respond to one another according to their level of influence. You'll quickly recognize how much influence you have with various people in your life. Stages of influence and their impact. If you read John's The 5 Levels of Leadership, then you probably remember the description of the 5 levels of leadership and how influence grows in stages. Visually, it looks like the diagram on the following page. Leadership, which is a specific application of influence, is at its lowest level when it is based on position only. It grows and goes to a higher level as you develop relationships with others. That's when they give you permission to lead beyond the limits of your job description. As you and your followers become more productive together in your work, then your leadership can go to level 3. And when you begin to develop people and help them reach their potential, your leadership moves up to level 4. Only a few people reach level 5 because it requires a person to spend a lifetime developing others to their highest potential. Influence functions in a similar way. It grows by stages. Let's consider each level. Let's get that in focus, yeah? A little closer. There we go. Kind of want to be able to see the chart, although it doesn't seem to want to get into focus perfectly. Level 1, modeling. People are first influenced by what they see. If you have children, then you've observed this. No matter what you tell your children to do, their natural inclination is to follow what they see you doing. For most people, if they perceive that you are positive and trustworthy, then they will seek you as an influencer in their lives. And the better they get to know you, the greater your credibility will be and the higher your influence can become. When you meet people who don't know you, At first, you have no influence with them at all. If someone they trust introduces you to them and gives you an endorsement, then you can temporarily borrow some of that person's influence. But as soon as they have some time to observe you, you either build or bust that influence by your actions. One interesting exception to this modeling process occurs in the case of celebrities. Because of their preoccupation with television, movies, and the media, many people are strongly influenced by others whom they've never met. More often than not, they are influenced not by the actual individual, but by the image of that person. And that image may not be accurate. Nonetheless, they admire that person and are influenced by the actions and attitudes they believe that person represents. Level 2, motivating. If you want to make a really significant impact on the lives of other people, then you have to do it up close. And that brings you to the second level of influence, motivating. You become a motivational influencer when you encourage people and communicate with them on an emotional level. And that process does two things. First, it creates a bridge between you and them. And second, it builds up their confidence and sense of self-worth. When people feel good about you and themselves during the times they're with you, then your level of influence increases significantly. Level 3, mentoring. When you reach the motivational level of influence with others, you can start to see a positive impact in their lives. To increase that impact and make it long-lasting, you have to move up to the next level of influence, which is mentoring. Mentoring is pouring your life into other people and helping them reach their potential. As you give of yourself, helping them overcome obstacles in their lives and showing them how to grow personally and professionally, you help them achieve a whole new level of living. You can truly make a difference in their lives. Level 4, multiplying. The highest level of influence you can have in others' lives is in the multiplication level. As a multiplying influencer, you help people become positive influencers in the lives of others, and pass on not only what they have received from you, but also what they have learned and gleaned on their own. Few people ever make it to the fourth level of influence, but everyone has the potential to do so. It takes unselfishness and commitment. It also takes time. In order to move up a level in influence with people, you have to give them more individual attention. Your influence is neither positive or negative. Now that you recognize your influence with others, you might just think about how you are going to use it. Baseball legend Jackie Robinson noted, "A life isn't significant except for its impact on other lives." Robinson's impact on people in the United States has been incredible. In the mid-1940s, he became the first African-American athlete to play Major League Baseball, despite prejudice, racial taunts, abuse, and death threats. And he did it with character and dignity. Brad Horzog, author of The Sports 100, identified Robinson as the most influential person in American sports history. First, there are those who change the way games are played. Then there are men and women whose presence and performance forever altered the sporting scene in a fundamental manner. And finally, there are the handful of sports figures whose influence transcended the playing fields and impacted American culture. Robinson, to a greater extent than anyone else, was all three types in one. Martin Luther King Jr., one of the most influential Americans of the 20th century, acknowledged the positive impact Jackie Robinson made on his life and the cause for which he fought. To African-American baseball pioneer Don Newcomb, King said, "You'll never know what you and Jackie and Roy did to make it possible to do my job." As you interact with your family, your coworkers, and the clerk at the store today, recognize that your life touches many others' lives. Certainly your influence on your family members is greater than that on the strangers that you meet. And if you have a high-profile occupation, you influence people you don't know. But even in your ordinary day-to-day interaction with people, you make an impact. You can make a few moments that you interact with a store clerk and a bank teller a miserable experience, or you can get them to smile and make their day. The choice is yours. Positive influencers add value to other people. As you move up to the higher levels of influence, you can begin to have a positive influence on people and add value to their lives. That's true for any positive influencer. The teacher who puts his faith, confidence, and love in a little girl helps her feel valued and good about herself. The boss who delegates to her employees and gives them authority as well as responsibility empowers them to become better workers and people. The parents who know how and when to give their children grace help them stay open and communicative, even during their teenage years. All these people add lasting value to the lives of other people. You don't know what kind of influence you have on others today. Your actions may touch the lives of thousands of people, or you may influence 2 or 3 coworkers and family members. The crucial thing to remember is that your level of influence is not static. Even if you've had a negative influence on others in the past, you can turn that around and make your impact a positive one. And your level of influence has been relatively low if your level of influence has been relatively low up till now, you can increase it and become a person of influence who helps others. Who is on the influence list? Everyone could sit down and make a list of people who have added value to her life. We mentioned that the list at the beginning of this introduction contains the names of some people who have influenced us. Some of the names are big. For example, John considers 18th century evangelist John Wesley to be a significant influence on his life and career. Wesley was a dynamic leader, preacher, and social critic. During his lifetime, he turned the Christian church in England and America upside down, and his thoughts and teachings continue to influence the way churches function and Christians believe even today. Other people named on the list are not well known, but that in no way lessens their level of influence. For example, Jerry and Patty Beaumont had a profound impact on the lives of Jim and his wife Nancy. Here's their story told by Jim. Nancy and I first met Jerry and Patty when Nancy and Patty were both pregnant. The Beaumonts were a classy couple, really sharp and confident. We were attracted to them immediately because it seemed that they really had their lives together, and we observed that they were living out their strong spiritual convictions with integrity and consistency. Nancy met Patty one day while they were in obstetrician's waiting room. They hit it off instantly and began to build a relationship. We had no idea how much their friendship was going to mean to us just a few months later when our lives got turned upside down. Nancy and I think back on those days now as a good time in our lives. Our daughter, Heather, was 5 years old, and we were really enjoying her. We were also just beginning to build our business. It was taking a lot of time and energy to get it going, but it was fun. We were beginning to see that all of our work was going to pay off in the future. When Nancy told me that she was pregnant, I was ecstatic. It meant that our little family was about to grow. We hoped our second child would be a boy. After 9 months of a routine pregnancy, Nancy gave birth to our first son, Eric. At first, everything appeared to be normal, but a few hours later, the doctors discovered that Eric had been born with some very serious physical problems. His back was open, and his spinal cord was not formed properly. They told us that he had a condition called spinal bifida. To make things worse, his spinal fluid had gotten infected during the delivery, so he was suffering from severe systemic meningitis. Our whole life was thrown into chaos. After Nancy's hours of labor, we were exhausted and confused. They told us that Eric needed brain surgery, and we had to make a decision right then. Without it, he didn't stand a chance. We cried as they prepared to take our little boy for emergency brain surgery. All we could do was pray that he would make it. We waited for hours, but the doctor finally came out and told us that Eric was going to live. We were shaken when we saw him after the surgery. We wondered how someone so small could have so many wires attached to him. The opening in his back was closed, but we could see that they had surgically implanted a shunt tube in his brain to drain off excess spinal fluid and relieve the pressure. The first year of Eric's life was a blur for us as he repeatedly entered Children's Hospital. In the first 9 months, he underwent 11 more surgeries. While we were trying to survive the midnight trips to the hospital and hold up under the pain and fear we had for Eric, guess who came alongside us and helped us survive each day as it came? Jerry and Patty Beaumont. They had come to the hospital that first day of Eric's life and given us comfort and encouragement while he was in the operating room. They brought food for us and sat with Nancy and me in the hospital waiting rooms. And all the while they shared their incredible faith with us. Most important, they helped us believe that God had a special plan for Eric and us. You know, Patty told Nancy one day, you and Jim can make Eric's problems the center of everything you do, or you can use them as a launching pad for a whole new way of looking at life. It was then that we turned a corner in our lives. We began looking beyond our circumstances and saw that there was a bigger picture. We realized God had a plan for us, and as well as Eric, and our faith gave us strength and peace. The Beaumonts had helped us consider and answer some of life's most important questions. From that day on, our entire attitudes changed, and we had great hope. Now Eric has grown up and gets around pretty well in his electric wheelchair, despite having experienced a stroke during one of his surgeries. He is a constant source of joy, inspiration, and humor for the Dornan family. And though their contact with Jerry and Patty Beaumont lasted only about a year, Jim and Nancy recognized the tremendous value they added to them and still consider them to be two of the greatest influencers in their lives. Today, Jim and Nancy are people of influence. Their business has expanded into many countries around the world, from Eastern Europe to the Pacific, from Brazil and Argentina to mainland China. Through seminars, tapes, and videos, they impact hundreds of thousands of individuals and families each year, and their business continues to grow. But more important to them, they are sharing their strong values and faith with the people they influence. They're doing all they can to add value to the lives of everyone they touch. We don't know exactly what your dream is in life or what kind of legacy you want to leave. But if you want to make an impact, you will have to become a man or woman capable of influencing others. There's no other way of effectively touching people's lives. And if you become a person of influence, then maybe someday, when other people write down the names of those who made a difference in their lives, your name might just be on the list. That is the introduction to How to Influence People by John C. Maxwell. And I think normally I'm going to read a little bit more, a little bit longer, maybe something closer to an hour. But for today, I think that's going to be enough. So I've got this recorded. I'm not sure if anybody logged into the stream. If you did, thank you for joining. Let me see if there's any chat. Sarin, so far it's business and religion. Well, what else did I expect? I'm not sure if I know who you are by your username, but I mean, yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, you don't have to be a person of, I don't think you have to be a person of faith to appreciate this book, but I mean, for people of faith, that's a big part of their lives. And this is just kind of a story and supposed to be an inspirational story about how people influence them. The faith is not the important point here. The faith is just a side point. It's just kind of there. But the author, unlike a lot of other authors, isn't willing to remove faith just because it's controversial in this day and age. So, I mean, I think that's a good thing. But, you know, everyone has their opinions. So that's it for this stream. I think I'm going to log off for now. I need to make this a little bit more perfect, lock this down a little bit better. There's some things I can do to improve the stream that I just didn't have time to do today. But hopefully this was a fun experience, and I'm going to continue this book. I'm also going to upload VODs of this playthrough, so that if you joined right in the middle, didn't hear the beginning, you can go back and read, and anybody else that wants to come and join in the series can go back and see the beginning. So I'll post a link somehow in Twitch, whether I upload it on Twitch or I upload it on YouTube. I'll make sure that there's ways for people to go back and hear the previous version so people can catch up with this series at any time. But I intend to read every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at a minimum. And if I have alterations to my schedule, if something comes up, I'll make sure to post it so that it's obvious when I'm reading. So that's it for this. Thank you for joining, and I will see you next time.